Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for episode number 29 of Changemakers. If you've been around with Be the Change for a while, for the year, gosh, to be honest with you, it was probably this time last year that we actually had Jalonnie on an episode of Truth Will Set You Free. You will recognize this guest. Our special guest for this episode is Jalonnie Givens. He, again, has been around since the early stages, since the cash days. Since the very beginning of the cash days, actually. And his mission and journey has not stopped. Former gang member turned political activist, part of the Republican Party, who's raised in Seattle, Washington, currently owns a home out there, consistent change maker, and a representative of the 27th district that is continuously fighting for the rights of those that are seemingly voiceless in this world. So we're going to get the show started shortly. So start since the Chaz and Chop days. That is correct. That's he's been on. All right, guys, do me a huge favor. We're just getting started with Changemakers. This is a show about positivity, how people are actually taking action in their communities. Usually we don't get political. This one is going to be obviously a little bit more political, but it's talking about how to get involved with your local community and with your local politics and how important that is. We talk about that all the time. So this will be a great episode for you to share, have people understand that all different kinds of people are getting involved in politics, which is the great thing about today's world. Some of the bad things is politics, but some of the positive things is how people are getting involved. We're going to get started in about 30 seconds. So if you guys could hit the share button, hit the like button, start making comments in the box. What's going on, Parker? Cannot wait for slip and slide baseball on the 4th of July. Jalonnie's like, what are you guys talking about? Y'all are weird. All right, let's go and get the show started. 30 seconds still showtime with Jalonnie Givens, ladies and gents. What's going on, everybody? It's Anthony Russo with Be the Change USA. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for jumping in. I'm seeing the comments right now. We've got a decent amount of viewers flowing in here. We're pretty excited for today's show. Again, Changemakers is about people that are creating change in their community, people that are creating that ripple effect and not just creating change in their lives, but creating change for their family, creating change in their local communities, and hopefully touching people's lives so that they can be the change that they wish to see in the world. So let's get this show spreading. Let's go ahead and hit the share button. Before we bring on our guest, we've got almost 4 times the amount of viewers as we do reactions. So everybody right now, on the count of 3, I want you to hit the thumbs up, the heart, or the care emoji so that we can get this moving. If you're on YouTube, shift the comments off to the side. If you are on your phone, and go ahead and hit those reactions button on the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I should see those going up in about 16 seconds because that is delay. The delay, Parker. I appreciate the shout on the beard. I'm letting it get nice and full, like a little chia pet. That's going to look really good with that awake, not woke hat when we get those out there. Pretty excited about that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to catch any of our shows like Truth or Set You Free, which was a 3-hour marathon last night, you can check it out on our podcast network, which is #BetheChange.com/podcast. Let's see, what else do I want to tell you guys? No Concert Avengers tonight. I've got a special call with some people that I've chosen to be a part of my first class of essentially free, but they're going to be investing their time, free motivational speaking clients, performance coaching clients. We're doing a 4 to 6 week program. So that's what's going on tonight. That's why there is no Concert Avengers, but maybe, just maybe, I'll get frisky and do a blunt force logic later this evening. Last thing I'm going to tell you on YouTube, do me a favor. I found out one of the big reasons why sometimes you don't get alerted if you're watching on YouTube, not just subscribe, but hit the bell button. That means you get the notifications when we go live. Excellent. The strick of gray. What gray? There is no gray there, Barbara. I will find you. I will hunt you down. There is no gray. It's an illusion. There is no spoon. All right, guys, I'm excited for this guest. You guys probably remember him. He was one of our, probably in the first 10 episodes of Truth Will Set You Free. He was on a couple times. Him and I communicate a lot on Facebook Messenger, and he has been actually taking the ownership of saying, you know what, I can create change in my community. I can get involved in local politics. I can stand up for what I believe in, even against all odds, including alienating family members, alienating friends, and saying, you know what, my voice is too important to stay quiet. So I'm very excited to bring on Jalonnie Givens. Jalonnie is a former gang member turned political activist and now local politician. And I cannot wait for him to share his full story, which you probably have not even heard back on the old Truth Will Set You Free. So if you're at home right now, I need you to give a round of applause and welcome Mr. Jalonnie Givens. What's on? What's going? What's going on, brother? So since the beginning, like I remember when we first had you on Truth Will Set You Free, you were sitting there, you had like, you know, your cell phone. Now you've got the whole rig, you've got the microphone. I think I even asked you, I was like, what kind of mic you get? That stuff looks fancy. What do you got going on over there? So,
you know, Jalonnie, I had to get all fancy for you guys.
You had to get legit. You had to get legit. So, Jalonnie, there's a long time coming in terms of what you decided to do. I want you to introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background and upbringing, if you can.
Jalonnie Givens, Republican for Pierce County, Washington. I actually moved to Tacoma for the 27th district. But I still, you know, I'm around Seattle and Olympia, back and forth, actually trying to make change, going to rallies as much as I can. You know, my wife don't really like me doing all that too much. So I've set up my home base and had people, you know, going out for me, feeding back information. Former gang member. So, you know, I was living in Seattle, Washington, did the whole gang thing, which led me to end up being homeless. And, you know, found, you know, people who actually cared about me and tried to lead me to the right way, you know, stepped away from my Christian values and realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do with my life. And I stepped away from my family and friends for about a good, I don't know, I would have to say a year or so. And really to just try to find myself. I found a house out here in Tacoma, because apparently people like people who are married. They gave me an opportunity and they allowed me to buy the house for only $93,000 out here in Tacoma. So that's really, really cheap for me.
It's got to be worth. It's got to be worth a lot more now, I assume.
Yeah, it's worth over well over 200,000 out here now. I'm like, thank you guys for that. For that little. I'm like, anything can happen when you. And the funny thing is, it's like right across from a hospital that my wife walked to when she was pregnant with my son. So she ended up having him on my birthday. And, you know, and it was snowing.
And your son's 4, right? So you've got a 4-year-old. You know? Yeah, sweet baby Jesus. You got a 4-year-old boy, correct? And a 12-year-old daughter. Yeah. Did you hear me? Yeah, sorry. Is there a delay on? Am I giving? Is mine mine delaying on your end? Sorry about that. All right, so I'll talk and then I'll pause.
A little bit.
All right, so let's before we get into your politics, your upbringing. You talked about in your area. How did you get involved, and why did you get involved in gang life?
I mean, it was really more of a family thing. Like I really, all I knew was gang life because I was so young when I experienced being a part of it and actually seeing it. So it was more of a family thing. So it's like, how do you leave something when it's all you know and a lot of your family members are like attached to it, you know?
But that brings up an interesting point because ultimately what people say is, and it's almost been used in as excuse where it's like, well, somebody like Jalonnie doesn't have a choice. Like they grew up in it. They didn't have an opportunity to see anything different. And that's why they are. And what we could talk about systemic oppression. You could talk about fatherless homes, et cetera. You could talk about all these different things. But fact is, there is instances like you, Jalonnie, where you can get out of the gang life. You can get out of the bad things. Would you say that that's uncommon? And why do you think that's uncommon, if it is?
I mean, I don't think it's uncommon. I just think that when it happens, nobody talks about it, and then that person is deemed an outcast or a coon or whatever. So then it's like you're instantly no longer a gang member at that point. Once they do that, and your history of you being a gang member is wiped off the earth, just like how they try to do with all these sculptures and everything. Then they just rewrite your history for you, calling you whatever they want. And that's
Do you think?
been pretty much me just trying to prove at this point that I was a gang member, and I don't even want to. Like
Yeah,
I
no,
don't want to. Like, I'm like, I'll do without it at this point. It doesn't matter to me. I mean,
that's just
it
crazy.
is something that I tell because it's like I want kids who are in the gang life to leave it, but at the same time, I have to prove to other dudes that know for a fact that I was a part of the life. But just because I turned my back on it, all of a sudden my history's gone. So it's like, okay, well, I guess
So weird.
bye.
So
Biden.
weird. Because I think it's I think it's important because showing that shows the fact that it's one of those ones like I've said this a lot in the last couple weeks. People talk about like give somebody if I give a homeless man a free meal, do I videotape it, show it, and then share it on social media? And I used to say 10 years ago, no, that seems a little weird. It seems like you're trying too hard to show people that you do good. But in this day and age, we live in a world that is way different than it was 10 years ago. There's so many negatives. There is so much division. There are so many ugly things that when you actually can make a change and show that it's possible, you're literally giving the blueprint to other people to make that change. That's why I always look at people like Don Lemon and say, why aren't you showing people how to become you? How are you? I mean, granted, I think he's got no talent, but to get to the place that he has gotten to, you know what I mean? Why don't we just show?
He's too busy showing people that Ben Carson is apparently a slow moron, even though he's made books telling Black folks how they can do better. And I mean, that's just one example right there of Don Lemon versus somebody like Ben Carson, a guy that has tried helping Black folks succeed in life, and he split brains and stuff made with two people, and yet Black folks look at him like he helped with Trevor Noah, look at him like he's just like dyslexic or something. And I'm like, that's crazy.
He talks a little slower, but he's also not meant to be a television broadcaster. It's funny whenever I get into, and people that watch Truth will say
you want a doctor with patience for one.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Dr. Ben Carson is patience.
Exactly. It's just funny because it's like that's like Ben Carson is a trigger word. Whenever I have debates and people have seen it on Truth Will Set You Free, and we bring or any of the times we have these conversations, and I say, but what about with Ben Carson and working with Trump and people legitimately, oh my God. And it's a lot of times when we have a Black liberal guest,
and he's still probably in the White House. We haven't even seen him since he was appointed. Where has been?
Yeah, I don't get why there's so much hate for somebody that just it's all politics. This is an example, just like what you're going through on a different scale. Obviously, a Black man that's done well for the community and helping people and succeeded for himself and his family. Yet he's shamed because he worked for Trump and he's a Republican. Like things that make you go, So, Jalonnie, I want you to. So, I know you and I have talked about this before too, and I think this is an important part of the story because obviously you're comfortable speaking. You're now on a political level where you have to speak for a living. You did when you grew up. You had some issues with learning disabilities, ADHD. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I couldn't really understand English all too well, so they put me in ESL. So for a while, I had to try to figure out how to speak and read in English. I used video games and television, obviously, to pick up on how to speak. So a lot of the times I was speaking like a robot for a good amount of time. Then I started speaking like a broadcaster host. And so it was a lot of times trying to figure out how I wanted to sound and the right words I wanted to use. And it got to the point where it was between trying not to stutter really hard and trying not to sound like a robot and trying not to sound too rehearsed. And it was a long process of just me thinking of words while I was speaking until I could actually just start doing it in front of people.
Did they diagnose that? What was the did they, and how old did that last until?
Um, well, I guess it was young because I also had surgery on my tongue. It was really long, so there was that as well. I don't know. My mom decided to do that surgery, so I had a lot going on as a kid.
Yeah.
So it was really young. I can't really say as far as, but I do know my stuttering stopped maybe high school.
So okay, it lasted that long. So let's recap. You had a learning disability. A lot of kids have learning disabilities, but yours was a lot involving speech. And I know we know how kids are, especially Jalonnie. How old are you?
I'm 28.
So 28. So you were still a little ahead of the generation that like I think that's the one positive thing about kids these days is they celebrate people's differences a little bit better. That's the only real good thing about the younger generation is they see when people have a disability or a learning disability or they're behind on something or a handicap of some kind, they're very supportive, which I think is great. I think that there is an empathetic level to kids that is fantastic. But you were probably not a part of that era, so you probably got a little bit of crap from the kids you were around. You also were in a family that the kind of the gang history was part of it. Um, you had a lot going against you growing up, and based on the picture that our country paints, you probably would not be wearing a red hat that says "Make America Great Again" and running in politics in this day and age. Would that be an accurate assumption?
Yeah, I mean, I had to really get away from Seattle, being honest, or else I would have probably never would have. I talk to people now, and it's like I'm telling them all the news for the first time. It got to the point where some of my followers come to me first for a lot of the news because apparently I talk about it first. And it's like that should not be the case. And I mean,
So
and
what?
especially if they want me to be a politician, I don't want to be a politician and the guy providing your news for you. Like
Yeah,
that should
that's
never be
hard.
the case.
No, no, definitely not. That's why Trump's not on Twitter anymore. So before because the reason why you and I really met is somehow I kept running across the fact that no matter what you posted on Facebook, it was getting deleted. And I'm a firm believer that the most um, impactful voice that we have in the United States of America in politics right now is the Black conservative voice, not because it's a race thing, it's a color thing, but because there is a level of speaking to everyone, because you can resonate with the like ultra left white liberal that says you don't understand, and you can resonate with the Black community to say it doesn't have to always be like this. You're free to think as many different ways as you want. But before we get into the censorship, why did you make the switch, or what made you start realizing that politics matter, and B, why you wanted to lean towards the Republican side?
Because nobody had any answers for me, not even my elders. I would keep asking questions, and when I would ask questions, they would just be like, "Do research," and I'm like, "Okay," So if I had to keep doing my research, and it kept leading me to the Republican Party and to God and to all the things that held dear to my values, then I was like, well, I mean, I think I might be Republican. And so when I started talking to people, because Facebook, it likes to remind you about posts and stuff like that. I actually have like in my phone, I have posts that were saved and I post them to my page to let people know that this is not a game. Like these were things that I actually felt. And I was going out making posts like asking like, oh, are there conservatives out there that I can talk to? Are there people who support the Republican Party that I could talk to? I would show people posts that I made about the Republican Party because it was like I was like, not all Republicans are racist, but most of the racists are Republican. I would make posts like that, and because I felt like that's how I felt without any knowledge of who the Republican Party was, and being honest, I didn't even really know if I even knew any Republicans that were in my friends list. So I just kept asking questions, doing more research, and then I mean I got a job that allowed me to think more So I didn't have to deal with people being in my face. I got to actually do research, and it led me to the path that I'm at right now. So
Do you
sorry
remember
for
what bit of information it was that finally was like the one, holy grail moment or eureka moment where you're like, I don't think I resonate with the Democratic Party anymore or
it
ever.
was when I was watching Antifa on the news, and they looked like ISIS. And I was like, wait, why are we as black folks hanging around these radical people who are rallying Black Lives Matter, but still carrying this whole different emblem, that their Antifa little logo, and they're
Oh, I think you froze.
causing mischief while at the same time yelling Black Lives Matter.
Say that one more
And
time.
that
You
was
froze
like,
up a little
okay,
bit.
at this point,
Say that one more time, just so
oh,
it's all right.
uh,
You got all of it in there. You saying with the they were holding the flag, they were shouting Black Lives Matter, but then what was it? Because I'm really curious what they
it was
what.
just the whole emblem of, and their whole emblem of what they had with their Antifa logo and this and that. And it's like they're a whole different chapter, and they don't have any of the values that I was taught being within the black community. But yet they did the most destruction, and then Black Lives Matter took responsibility for it.
Yeah,
So
and
it's like
almost merged.
it was just a weird thing that I'm a gang member. I'm hanging out with people that claim that they want a better life, but yet we're right here ready to ruin our life for the Democrats, just for them to forget about us right after election.
Yeah, and
And
this was
and then
this
we're
was
back
in the
to
last
killing
like
each other.
this is in the last like year and a half or so that you
Yeah.
started making that came to this epiphany. So when it comes to you start realizing that your beliefs are a little bit different, which obviously is going to be a little bit hard. So the transition then goes from that to I think this is right when you and I met is what you were going through with your family, essentially saying, you're insane. Like how could you actually be, wearing a Trump hat? How could you possibly be interested in, more right side politics? Explain what that was like with your close family members.
It was difficult because for the most part, I was like, okay, well, I think that my family would be super supportive because they raised me conservative, and I mean, you would think that they wanted me to be in power and stuff like that. And for the most part, I was right. The older people in my family are on board with what I'm doing, but then it's like the younger generation. Social media has gotten into their head where they need to get all these likes and attention. And it's like if they can feel like they're doing something, even though it's not even really anything and it's just gaining them likes, then it must mean that Black Lives Matter. And that's not the case. They're getting brainwashed. And it sucks because my family is they say we're one of the largest black families to still live in Seattle. And my family's been living in the same area for over 55 years. And I mean, all of my grandparents' brothers and sisters still own their houses that they lived in since moving there. So it's like my grandmother is the oldest out of 9, and then she had 8 kids.
It's a big family.
So it's like we're a really big family out here. So I mean, I tell people you can't throw a rock without running into somebody who might have my DNA in Seattle.
So how many so out of your family percentage wise, how many people are okay? Like so say it sounds like you've got a pretty big family out there in Seattle. So say you've got I don't know, 100 family members. Say you got a family barbecue that you're gonna go to in Seattle. Out of 100 of the family that shows up, how many are not going to speak to you anymore?
I would say it's about, I would say 40% won't speak to me,
No kidding.
maybe. And that's just
Wow.
because they're younger.
Yeah.
The older
Crazy.
will talk to me or we'll have a conversation. The younger generation is like, nah, you sold out. I'm like, all right, well, and younger generation for me would be like within, I would say 35 tops.
5 and under. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how many are out of that? We'll take it just a slice of pie of 100 people. Out of that 100, how many are actually in agreement with you, or how many have seen the light that you've shown them? How many people resonate with kind of what you're talking about, or being conservative politically? And I know there's conservative for
One of which
morals.
is, I mean, my grandparents, they're happy that I'm doing what I'm doing because all they've seen is gang violence and guns, bullets going through their windows and stuff. So it's nice to have somebody actually speaking about the values and actually trying to make change within the community for them. So they're on board. My great grandparents, I've always been on board with everything that I do. They're just happy that I'm not at their house asking for money.
Yeah.
And my mother's been by my side since the beginning. So I've had her. My dad, on the other hand, he unfriended me and all of that. So he speaks through my wife.
Oh, that's crazy. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is your wife in political agreement with you?
my wife is doing her own thing. She doesn't bother me. She I mean, she knows and understands that the border crisis is a serious thing. And she's from El Salvador. And so like I've seen her like having panic attacks when she's looking at those kids at the border. They're
Yeah.
just like, she's like, oh, that could have been me. So I'm
Yeah.
like, and that makes me even more mad to see her go through that and watch all that going on. And I'm like, okay, so I got to be understanding about that too. And for the most part, the Republicans that I've been meeting, like their wives or their husband are from different countries, communist countries, or countries like El Salvador and stuff like that. And they've gotten their papers and this and that. So it's like no one is. I learned through going through the process that it's all the media and this and that trying to show us that the Republican Party is not, they don't have that kind of good structure of community, and there's no blacks and no Asians, no Samoans, but I mean, shoot, the MAGA drag, my first MAGA drag, the people who were helping to run that were Samoan. And I'm like, oh, like it's a whole mixture of people trying
Jalonnie,
to help out.
what is a MAGA drag?
That is a bunch of cars. We drive from Olympia to Seattle, some even further, and we rock our flags that we buy, showing what we support, whether it be Trump 2024 or our Second Amendment rights, anything that will show them that we care about America, and we'll drive with as many cars as possible and shut down the freeways if possible. But with reason.
So all right. So now I got to ask
shutting down the freeways, but people will stop and look. So I mean, at that point, we stay
it
out the
slows
way.
down. You slow down traffic. Before we go on to, because again, one of the biggest things we talk about is how to get involved. Why do we get involved? You're about to get to that point. We do have a question Barbara asked, and it's a good question. So Barbara's talking about how her husband is deemed a sellout, and how you said the younger generation calls you a sellout. Why is it that somebody that decides to change political parties to the right, especially if they're a minority, becomes the word quote unquote sellout? Why is that? Why do you think?
Because it's easy to demonize somebody who's actually trying to make change instead of actually taking responsibility in your own actions. So they'll rather just, blame somebody for why they're not doing well, like the government and Trump or whatever, and, or blame their skin color for why they can't succeed. And instead of, looking at a guy that's actually making it and, trying to follow his path. And I mean, I know for sure that's how I felt when I was going through that whole gang life. I was like, I mean, it was way easy for me to just be like, yep, you hate me because I'm black. You know, it was super easy. I mean, I can look at you right now and be like, why are you looking at me like that? I mean, you want my melanin? What's going on, man? Like, like,
Okay.
and it creates a God complex reality, and it's really bad. I had a real bad God complex to the point where I'm like, oh, if I give you a baby, I'm giving you melanin to your family's like like bloodline.
Yeah,
It was,
it's a way, it's a thought it's funny. It's a pendulum. We swing, and it's been like that for thousands of years. We swing in one direction where one extreme is in charge, then the other extreme is in charge. It's so hard to find that balance, and in this day and age, everything's it's moved in such a faster way. It's hypersensitive because of social media, because we're in the information age. Everything that took 4 years to do something takes 12 minutes, which is the same as the way our pendulum swings. And
I've seen I've seen Facebook in their ads, because their ads are trying to, I guess, target black folks, and and every ad is getting more black supremacy, like every ad. And I'm like, at what point are we going to start actually doing what Martin Luther King says? Because Facebook loves posting Martin Luther King quotes, but yet they're not following his ways.
I love, somebody posted this today. So funny. It was, it was talking about car commercials, and it's like, based on car commercials, I'm pretty sure that 82% of the United States of America is an interracial couple that likes to go camping on weekends. So good. I liked it. So, all right. So next question, I don't want to get to censorship, because I think that's a good way to kind of get close to wrapping, because I think it's just insane. So what was it? And this is where you and I have not talked much. You always kept me up to date that you were running for different things, or you were getting involved. What do you do for your state? What is your role in the I believe 27th district? And explain a little bit about what you're a part of in your local community.
Okay, so I'm freshly in this position. So for the most part, I've been trying to make it to our meetings, and they are doing training to help me, figure out the process and the items I'll have to use in order to connect with voters who voted a certain way. And they'll help me, talk to them in a better sense, because, I'm not that polished when it comes to talking to people about certain candidates, and I might seem a little, but it's not soliciting, for one. So, for the most part, we're able to go to people's doors and actually get good information from them, as far as like helping them
make a decision,
see where they might want to vote again,
and what they.
So, I mean, they give us a whole laydown of what we need to, at least a guideline of what would be good things to say to people. And then I'm guessing we would need to just, freelance on that. But,
what's it? So
I'm working with.
Explain what a PCO is too. So you're a PCO for the 27th district. So explain what that is real quick.
PC committee officer. So what they do is they help out candidates who are running for office, or any position for that matter. And they sit down, discuss what these people are doing, and we'll have meetings and try our best to help them out. When it comes to helping out a candidate, that's when it gets to soliciting, because sometimes candidates ask money. So but when we're just doing the regular thing, like going out to doorbelling, that's where it's actually trying to see and help the Republican Party, or whatever party you're actually doing this for, see if they'll go and vote a certain way, or if they're already voting that way, try to keep them encouraged to keep voting that way. But me personally, I got into this position because I wanted to learn the political process, and I wanted to actually be there with these people and actually see who I'm voting for. Because I mean, I'm tired of people doing it for me, telling me what I need to do and who I need to talk to. If I need to talk to them, we will talk, and I will make sure that we will talk. Just like, I mean, I did my best to meet up with police chiefs. I do my best to me and the chairman for the Republican Party out here in the Pierce County. We're doing a few things, so we're in the we got a few things that we're working on as well. And I'm trying to keep people informed out here in Tacoma and Seattle and Olympia and anywhere else that I can for that matter. But right now we're trying to keep it local because that's where it really matters.
I think what Marla said, it's refreshing to have somebody like, honestly, I don't, if somebody super polished showed up to my door, like a Jehovah's Witness, like popping in there and be like, let me tell you why you should keep voting. I wouldn't like that. If honestly, most of the time I'm not going to listen to somebody randomly coming to talk about politics or on the phone, etc. But if somebody's going to show up like you, that's completely, human, like legitimately saying stuff, not being perfect with everything that comes out of your mouth, I am going to listen 10 times more in that instance because we've got such a bad taste of what politicians are in this country. Like, if Joe Biden was running for like a small local state office because of his, lack of ability to keep his, stuff together, I'd probably listen. I'd be like, I'm curious. This seems like a sweet old man, but not as somebody that's running the free world. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, he's more human. He's more personable than somebody that's super, super polished. Problem is, that's not the role of the president.
And that's what I'm learning through this process of what people are actually wanting compared to what they're actually getting. So It's been refreshing to actually see it firsthand and to see how the Republican Party acts behind closed doors and stuff. It's really interesting, I guess.
We're gonna go ahead and say that not perfect either direction. Like, and I know you and I talked in the beginning. You resonate more as a conservative. We talked, when I say in the beginning, I mean like a year ago. I haven't talked to you since, and I know that because of you working with the Republican Party, you probably have to be pretty Switzerland on this. But no party is perfect, and I just think that
no, that's not. I joined the Republican Party for me, not for them.
It's a great statement.
Be clear right now. No, I was conservative first, then Republican, and when I joined the Republican Party, it was under Trump. So they know where I stand. I tell them all the time. The guy that is my mentor, he is very vocal about how he feels about certain people within the Republican Party in Pierce County. And so am I. And certain candidates out there that have rubbed me the wrong way, I have made it vocal how I feel about them during our meetings. So, yeah, no, I'm not Switzerland at all.
See, so that's perfect.
A problem, we'll fix that.
See, that's the key. So people automatically think that, us conservatives, and again, I think you remember this as well. I know the audience knows I was a Democrat until 2010 to 2012, like somewhere in that area. I shifted. That does not mean that I am a blind sheep that is just saying like, hail Republican Party. Like, absolutely not. Like, there are so many failures, and even some of the things that Trump did, I don't love. Like, I really don't. The more I research there's more issues that I have with Big Pharma and the way that he actually made some deals that I think we're seeing the lasting effects now, especially with the V word. And it's like, no, did I vote for Trump? Would I vote for him again? 100%. But nobody is perfect. And I think people just think we blindly follow a group. And that is my issue with the Democratic Party, is people do not take any responsibility for the racism that Joe Biden has, the racism inside the party, and the dissension of, well, if you're black and you're a Democrat, you are our poster child. If you're black and a conservative, you're nobody else. And it's just like, there's so much division coming from that side. But the Republicans have its major flaws as well. And I love that you point that out. That's great. Good stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the big things with I guess being black conservative and being a Republican Party. From what I could tell, we want to make sure that we are not some token guy that people run to when they need a black guy for a photo shoot like Senator O'Bain did to me, you know what you did.
that happened to a Cash on a couple of cases, a couple occasions too. Out in Indiana, they're like, look at this voice, look at this guy growing, and he's a conservative. They brought him out. A couple of guys stayed true to their word. Actually, his liberal mayor ended up completely turning his back. I mean, it was absolutely absurd what his liberal mayor did when Cash completely supported him. And then when it came time for sentencing, all of a sudden his local leadership that held him up on such high esteem completely left him out in the dark. They used him for a photo op, and it shows that there is issues with both sides, and there is people that use. It's unfortunate, and this is where we're going to go into censorship. People use the black Democrat and they use the black conservative because, again, their voice right now is so important to convince the United States of America one way or another. And that's why, let's talk about censorship. One of the first things that I saw that you did was the walk away video, which I believe is though you posted 39 times. What was did you ever figure out what was going on with the censorship?
Facebook just didn't like me. They didn't like, I don't know. Like, I kept posting it there. And then after Hodge Twins and Terrence Williams and CK ended up reposting like 2-3 different videos, Facebook was like, nope, not anymore. And so then they just kept shutting me down. Every time I would make a post or something, I would reword almost every post just to try to tell the story different, like not differently, but same way, just in a different kind of style, just so Facebook wouldn't delete it, and they would find it and delete it. And it would get to the point where not only would they delete that video, but they would delete several of my posts as well. So it was like, oh man. So I had to like lay low for a while and stop posting. And then it got to the point where I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna stop communicating with my followers. I'm just gonna start posting stuff from my Twitter post and copy and pasting it onto Facebook. That started working for a while, but now, I mean, it's gotten a lot better, kind of. I mean, I still go to Facebook jail every other month, it seems like, but I'm trying. I didn't get to post nothing for any of the black holidays that has been popping up recently. So
well, no,
that's man.
Oh yeah, Juneteenth. Yeah, were you in Facebook jail for Juneteenth? The irony on that one.
Getting in jail during Black History Month.
I think so, and I'll tell you. So I think we talked about a funny story about how you got during Black History Month. You were in Facebook jail. I think what you did that month was great. You did one person a day, and not just great because I was, the first white dude you had as part of Black History Month, which, I'm not going to lie, I might have shed a tear because I'm like, it's at points, Jalonnie, when you get called a racist so much, and I don't know if you know this, that meant way more than I think you understand for you to put me on there and for you to include what I believe in, what I do, because there's only so much a human being can take of being told you're an awful human being before something like that is very needed. So I want to thank you for that. But on top of it, go ahead.
No, man, you deserve it, man. I mean, standing by Cash's side for as long as you did and still have. I mean, we need more people like that, regardless of race. I mean, other than my wife and, my mom, I was by myself that I felt like for a long time. And even like the best man for my wedding, he was going through his own thing. So it's like when people drift off and you ain't got nobody else there for you, it's nice to have somebody that will have your back, like how my mentor has been through the Republican Party. Well, I think that I'm by myself. Next, he pops out of nowhere, got a whole handful of list of people that need to meet me, and they're all willing investors or people who will advance my career within the Republican Party. So. Yeah.
Well, that month, so what you did is you took a different person from Black History and you did a post every day, and you had previous and current. And go ahead and tell everybody how your last day went. The last post.
I think it was like on the 27th, maybe the 28th.
You almost
No,
made it.
It was or maybe the 26th because Black History Month ain't that long, man.
No, it had
So
a couple days left.
it was like a post after, or maybe two posts after you. I did a post about the Walked Away creator, and he is gay and he supports Trump and he's been helping to make a change in America. He was also somebody that helped, after you care about that thing, to help a good amount of the black voters vote and walk away because of that page. Well, I made a post about him, and then that ended up being my last post that I got to make for Black History Month. And I felt like that was like a win in itself for me. I'm like, I'm a conservative, I'm black, I'm a Republican, and the last post for Black History Month was a gay white man.
Classic. I want to ask one more thing, and then we'll wrap up. So obviously, right now, big in the quote unquote talk on the war on racism in this country and politics is the voting rights issue. And now that you're getting a little bit more involved in politics, what is your belief system with this quote unquote Jim Crow 2.0 thing that they have spread in the media? Do you think it's
you mean
legit?
About the voter IDs?
Yeah, like George is the big voter IDs, and then George is also talking about the no water in line and all the different things, all the different stuff. What's your beliefs? What have you heard in terms of your area where they talk about voting rights and all that?
I mean, they use words that they know will trigger either black folks or minorities, and then they know that it will also trigger white folks who know that this is all BS, but then they'll be called racist if they speak out. They know that people who have been ignorant for so long and they're actually leading the charge, like somehow Cardi B being a political activist and only being the only one able to get an interview with Joe Biden during the election. They know that people like her with large followings will speak out, and just because she was able to get that scoop and that clout, because she's the only one. Well, she's not the only one, but she yells at Candace Owens, and then the black news channels will be on her side and stuff like that. So they know that people like that will listen, because the masses were raised without their fathers because of how the system was created and how the schools have been raising them to think that their skin is why they can't succeed. So when you have all the generation that was pretty much created by Joe Biden's America, because he was the man with the plan and he gloats about it all the time. When you have kids like me growing up like that with nothing but the news that is censored to make me mad, when you only got that, then this is the America Joe Biden created for us. And then you got people scared when they hear, oh, Jim Crow laws. Oh, and then they're instantly infuriated without even knowing any facts about it. And then it's all just racism.
There's somebody posting about how they're fighting for the rights for the voting laws on Instagram. And I simply put in there, I said, can you tell me, like on the Instagram post, I go, can somebody in here, without looking up CNN and looking up whatever, give me an example of what is racist in these laws? Why is it Jim Crow 2.0? I've received 27 replies. Not a single one had a statistic, except for it literally was just, you're insane, bro. Why don't you go troll on somebody else's page? I go, no, I'm listening. Somebody tell me. I've read the bill back and front. I've read the new voting laws in Georgia. Explain to me. And they're like, if you can't do the research on your own, or your mind is already made up, I go, can any of you explain one thing that's racist? And I've gotten 0 out of 27, just people talking poorly about me. What's that?
They probably skim through it, because in Seattle they don't teach kids how to read. They teach kids how to skim. So they don't even really, they'll read partial words and they'll see those trigger words. They're like skim. Oh, trigger word. There's a lot of trigger words in here. They're got to be racist.
Yep. Well, they've already convinced, like once you hear Jim Crow 2.0, it's in your head, it's set, and that becomes your speaking point. And again, Republicans are guilty of this too. They'll find something and they'll find the words that Fox News or Gateway Pundit or some kind of, Epoch Times, they'll say it and they'll be like, but this is what's happening because of da-da-da-da-da, without realizing that everything is sensationalized these days.
Well,
Anyways, go ahead.
Yep. That's why I tell people to just take charge and do your own research. I had to go to these protests myself. I helped out with a lot of the security that went down in Olympia. So it's like I've seen firsthand what Antifa can do to people. I've seen them intimidate people who ran away from communist country and are scared of the CCP. I've seen them intimidate old people just because they know that they can. And, there's videos of them out here actually doing harm, and they're more than just an idea.
Yo, 100%. Well, Jalonnie, we're going to wrap it up, but I want, first off, you to tell everybody what your future plans are. I know you just started this role. What's your goals? What in 2 years, what are we going to see from you? What is your future aspirations, and then where people can find you?
Like I said, I'm working with the chairman for the Republican Party out here, and hopefully we're getting a news media station built up out here in Tacoma so that we can keep people informed. And it's not just going to be some Republican recruiting kind of thing. This is going to be actually to inform people who they're voting for and to inform people what's actually going on within their communities. And you can reach me at Conservative J, and my YouTube. Everything has my name on it. You can Google me if you need to really find me. You'll find me.
Also, so since you said what you're doing, what would you, with the 50 people we have watching, what would you tell them to do? What would you ask of them to do if you can give them a parting word of inspiration on creating change in their communities or in their local politics? What do you want to leave with them?
Just look up just go to the meetings if you're Democrat, Republican, whatever, go to the meetings. Go to the meetings, sit down, actually listen to what's going on, because that was one of the big things for me, was going and actually attending the meetings and actually trying to work my schedule with the Republican Party schedule, because I took on a lead position at my job and I've done a bunch of other things on top of the committees that they want me to be a part of to help out with the Republican Party. And, so actually working on your schedule and actually wanting to work on your schedule to be a part of the change. Because if you don't want to work on the schedule and if you just want to just let everybody else do the work for you, then we're going to continue to be on this path. And we're going to continue to let people who know that they can do this and can do all this, but know that the people who actually have a voice are working really hard and they're just too tired, they're going to be the ones that keep speaking for us, like AOC.
And I think you're gonna. I think what people are gonna learn if they start going to those meetings is that there is really good local politicians that are Democrats and really good local politicians that are Republicans. What people don't realize is sometimes people jump tickets, especially in local politics. They will actually be a Democrat, even though most of their platform is Republican, because that is the way that they could fight the incumbent. And maybe they've got middle ground views, and most of us really enjoy middle ground views. So I think learning more about
they're doing that in New York.
Yeah. They've had
they're
to
doing that in New York, actually.
Yeah, because the incumbents have been difficult on their side, and honestly, and they're doing that. It's a lot of small towns, and it's a great way to learn who is really representing your community, and it's a great way to actually create change, because I think we have become so beholden to, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, and then yet when we have conversations, we're like, I'm pretty middle ground on a lot of things. I just, so you know what? Find out who is as close to middle ground as you can find, and find out what issues are most important to you. Anyways, Jalonnie, it was great to actually spend a whole hour with you. Thank you for joining. Good luck to you. I know you got a lot going on. We'll stay in touch, obviously. I'm glad you haven't had your Facebook page taken away, the last couple of days. So that's good.
I'm glad it lasted 3 days or maybe 2. I don't know. It feels like forever now.
Thank you guys. Make sure you subscribe to all the different channels. Please do us a favor. If you would like to support us, patreon.com/BetheChange USA. You see that scrolling on the bottom. And all of our shows are up on, where is it? Not YouTube. Let's see, the podcast. Hashtag BeTheChange.com/podcast. A lot of you guys are waiting shipments for clothing. That'll be in about 10 of you guys. We have our final orders going out. Then I shut down the store. We're going to relaunch it with the branding of Awake Not Woke, trademark pending. Ladies and gentlemen, have a fantastic rest of your evening and be the change you wish to see in the world. Be a change maker. Thank you, Jalonnie. Take it easy, brother.
Thank you, sir.